Alright folks, Quill18 here, bringing you another Let's Play Starcraft 2 custom maps. This time it is a game called Income Wars, which is very similar to Nexus Wars, which you may have just watched the commentary on, with a couple of twists. Well, one major twist basically. You still have sort of two bases, one on each side. This time your bases are cannons, so they actually do fire at the incoming stuff. So early on you don't have to worry about getting pushed, because once the sort of lower end units, you probably see that happening right here. Nope, not quite. If the lower end units make it up over the edge, they will get fired on by the cannon and get pretty much obliterated. So that'll keep you safe until a little bit later on, but very quickly you'll wear out. Now, how are we spawning these units? Well, instead of building buildings like in Nexus Wars, what we have is people, these little chooser units. Every time you walk into a square, you will spawn one of those. And you can see it's got the cost and income there. Every time you buy one, your income goes up by that amount. So for example, for Marines, they cost 20 to build, and your income will go up by 4 every time. You can see the people's income over here. And you have to go into the square to spawn it, and then if you want to spawn another one, you have to step out and then step in again. And what you'll see people do, this sort of wiggling back and forth, you just set yourself right outside the square, and you hit patrol, and then you patrol just inside, and then they'll just wiggle back and forth at warp speed like that, and they'll just spam a unit every time that you have income. Generally speaking, if you do this, you'll rip through your income really quick, and then you just sit there idling until the next income wave, which you can read up here. So, what's the strategy? Well, basically the same as before. It relies heavily on counter units. The big difference this time is you never commit to a specific building, so you can completely change your army composition at any time. The other difference is it's not two separate lanes. It's a 3-on-3 game, but there's only the one big lane, so sort of everyone on your side collaborates together. And if you could really collaborate, you could do some very, very cool combos. Generally speaking, these are sort of, you know, random people on both sides, so there's a limit to how much you can work together. But it's not 100% true. Anyway, so yeah, you've got these instant counters. So right now, you know, you see a lot of ground units, because early on, the best thing to build are generally considered to be Marines. See, Marines will give you 1 point of income for every 5 minerals you spend effectively. It's a 5-to-1 ratio. Other units have a much worse ratio. You spend a lot more, and your income doesn't increase by as much. Now, of course, some of the other units, like these Colossus, obviously quite powerful. You can see these Marines get ripped to shreds quite handily. Nonetheless, early on, you do want to spam heavy Marine just to build your income up. And my personal strategy is to build up my income to at least 1,000 before I switch to something else, just to get a good baseline there. And then it gives you advantages later on. But you do have to play it by ear a tiny bit. These Archons, I gotta remind, I'm a huge fan of Archons for these maps, for this map, just because the counters Marines so good, and then they're not light, they're not biological. Well, the only flag they have is Sonic, so they actually they're immune to most of the counters that other people will be running in this game. So I'm a big fan of them when I can do it. You can see we've gone up in tech pretty quickly here. We're now attacking battlecruisers and Thors. And the Thors are, look at that, little rally points. Interesting. Oh no, that's showing where they're going to attack. Oh, that's cool. Okay, those are set by the program. You do have a nuke. Each person on each team has a nuke they can deploy. So that's similar to Nexus Wars. It doesn't come into effect quite as much, because generally, by the time your base is getting pushed, you're getting pushed by super units. And what do I mean by that? Well, so these are all the normal units, right? And you can see now people aren't building Marines so much. You're seeing a lot of Void Rays, which are very powerful because you can mass a lot of them. At this point, our income every 30 seconds is 2,000 to 3,000. So you get that 3,000 at once. You spam a whole bunch of Void Rays, and that is a pretty powerful assault force, especially against anything tough like Thors and Ultralisks, which are very powerful. You can see these guys have decided to counter these Void Rays with Goliaths, which are a pretty good choice. We've also got Guardians, where I'm coming from the east here, so we're the side that's pushing very well right now. I'm building Thors. Thors are a very, very good option in this scenario. Very, very cost effective and quite potent. But it looks like they're probably going to be forced to move us or something here. I forgot I was going to say. Oh yeah, so these are all the normal units, the ones you would see in the game. Science vessels were quite cool for a little while because they actually heal mechanical units. They got either nerfed or bugged in the latest version I played, so they don't heal massive units like battle cruisers and Thors anymore. So hopefully that's been changed or what, I don't know. The Colossus are good. But yeah, these are all normal units. But then if you go on the other side of this ridge, these are all super units, and you can see the cost is much higher. Whereas here an Immortal is 140. Here everything is over 1,000, basically, except these little super marines, which instead of costing 20 cost 550. And then you get things that cost a whopping 5,000 minerals, like this, you know, monstrous carrier, basically. So eventually your income gets so high that it's not practical to spend it on the cheaper stuff. And in fact, there's a supply limit, so you can hit that cap. So at that point, you want to start building super units. And those guys are tough enough to survive in nuke. So yeah, the game doesn't tend to revolve around nukes quite as much as Nexus Wars. And it revolves a lot more about knowing counters, because you can instantly change. You know, one side starts to build a lot of Colossus, you want to start building air units. You know, even anti-air units like Vikings or something like that, because Colossus do count as air units in terms of being targeted, but they can't hit air. Wow, we're pushing the crap out of them here. Oh, there's the nuke. Huge nuke. In this version, in Income Wars, it does nuke both sides, so you want to be careful about exactly how you deploy it. Wow, their fortress is definitely... Oh no, it's fine. Okay, I was seeing the bar and thought they were heavily injured. Alright, they've managed to turn that around. Remember, the fortress does do a considerable amount of damage. It's doing about 50 damage per shot, so against normal units, that is quite a lot. But I have just whipped out my first carrier here, and the carriers have been nerfed a couple of times. They're not unreasonable. They're not like the I win button, but they're still very good because their little interceptors do have good range, and a lot of times they may draw fire. I think, I'm not sure, maybe the interceptors may be flagged as invulnerable, so maybe the other units ignore them. But a lot of times, like you can see here, the battle cruisers have actually taken up the front lines here, so your carriers are quite safe behind. So what will happen is, I will often start spamming the carriers once I get money. Now, you do need a lot, and they are 5,000 per, so I can probably afford one per wave, and then I might fill up the rest. Ooh, High Templars, I love High Templars in this. If we're still at the phase where there's a lot of infantry, High Templar are very good. Again, once you get those super units, and I believe these are probably War Pigs, yeah. The War Pigs have 900 health, compared to a Marine's, what, 40-ish? I should really have this memorized. But a Marine has 45 health, so whereas the High Templar are very good against Marines, they're not so much against War Pigs. And we've got some more super units here, the Stone Zealots, which do some really good damage. I'm still a fan of carriers personally, but that's because usually my allies end up, these Colossus are terrible right now. Who's building those? Bad choice. A lot of times, yeah, see, look, they get obliterated. Now my carriers are going to get destroyed here, and that is a lot of money gone. Yeah, a lot of times my allies tend to build some of the more tanky units, a lot of ground units, the Thors, the battle cruisers, whatever. So then the carriers end up being very, very poor choices in that situation. Now, another mechanic that needs to be mentioned is every time you get a certain kill count, I'm not sure, it might be like every 1,000 kills or something like that, your side gets a huge buff, like an extra plus 20% health, damage, and a movement speed buff. Ooh, looks like we actually used kind of an offensive nuke there. You can nuke anywhere you want in this map, although your little chooser guy has a max range, so he may end up having to move close to the battle from wherever he is. I don't remember if I was talking about something. But, oh yeah, the buff thing. Yeah, so one potential mechanic is, at first the kills are kind of even, but at a certain point you can consider, because it's based on the number of units killed, so there's something to be said about building fewer, more powerful units, and hopefully destroying lots of the wimpier units on the other side, because you will reach the kill count. Unless it's based on supply or something like that, in which case it doesn't apply, but I don't think it does. I think it's pure numbers. And then you'll get those buffs quicker. The other thing is, the units killed by the cannons don't count towards that, so if you do push in here and then you die because of the cannon, that's okay. You're not gonna suffer because of that. We're gonna spawn a bunch of Thors here, but they're pathfinding, screwing themselves as the front line are shooting. We may be able to destroy the cannon here. Yeah, it looks like it's about game over. And that's it. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. See you next time.